Okay, welcome to the remainder of the intro lecture. Again, I apologize for my connectivity problems yesterday. After I record these lectures this morning, I will be on the phone with Comcast giving them my love. So I'll pick up where I believe I left off yesterday, or where we started cutting up, which is teaching strategy, and I'll go on from there. I'll record the lectures for Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 after this and post those on Moodle as well. And I may break some of these lectures up into multiple parts just to keep anything from me in much longer than 20-30 minutes. So that's kind of the limit for most people to sit at their computer and watch a video. So my teaching strategy, I think I mentioned yesterday that accounting can be a bit dry. My focus is to try to bring real life examples into the subjects that we're talking about. I think that's important to kind of bring life to the subject and have it be relevant to you and your future career. And so I'll talk about not just how to do something, but why something is done a particular way and what the ramifications are. Wherever I can in PowerPoint, I'll demonstrate how to apply a particular concept. So I've decided this session to use a combination of recorded video lectures and live Zoom sessions. That's assuming I can get my connectivity issues sorted out. The reason I'm choosing to do that, I know a lot of teachers just automatically do Zoom sessions for every class period they would have normally had class. And I've taken a different approach for a couple of reasons. One, I know that many of you have very busy lives, children and jobs and other classes you're taking, all of that. And so I want to give you the maximum amount of flexibility possible. So if I record a lecture like I'm doing right now and upload it to YouTube and have a link on Moodle for you, you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you. You can watch part of it and come back to it. I've had some students tell me that they watch it over again. And it's automatically closed captioned. So for some students where English is a second language, that can be very helpful. I know I can get excited and talk fast, and that can be helpful. The other reason is I think it's a good way to convey content. I'd like to save our Zoom sessions for kind of working through problems together, which we'll do for the midterm prep session and the final exam prep session. So, and those dates are all on your course calendar. So our next live Zoom session will be on Wednesday, June 10th at our normal class meeting time, 5 to 7. And the following one will be on Wednesday, July 8th. So you can kind of mark your calendars and plan around those things. So my approach to teaching in general is to avoid surprises. So you're not going to see anything on a homework assignment that we haven't talked about in lecture or that you haven't seen in the book. And we're not going to have anything on the exam that you haven't already done either in homework or we've talked about in the exam review. So I don't believe in gotcha questions for teaching. So an overview of the first half of the class. So chapters 1 and 2 talk about the role of the accountant, which I'll talk about kind of in a big picture sense. There wasn't an awful lot of meat in chapter 1, but we'll talk about that. I really like talking about the nature and behavior of costs, because once you understand how costs behave in an organization, it can help you predict the future. It can help you say, this is what will happen if, which is invaluable to businesses that need to make decisions about what course of action to take. The next chapter, I'll talk about time value of money, which is a kind of a difficult subject, but it's really a way of judging everything in today's dollars. So $1 5 years from now is worth less than $1 today. So that's kind of the basis of that. Responsibility accounting is about reporting on segments within a business. So segments might be departments or divisions or product lines or even customers. So looking at how we judge parts of a business versus the whole. Budgeting, we'll talk about how to start with the strategy for the business and then operationalize that in terms of having budgets. we'll go into detail on that. I think that's a very important subject. We'll talk about cost allocation theory, which is how to deal with common costs in a business. So if we look at segments of a business, there are certain costs that are overarching costs, like the CEO's salary. How do you allocate that to different departments? So we'll talk about the theory behind that in the first half. And then in the second half of the class, we'll talk about different practices for dealing with cost allocation. We'll talk about absorption costing, which is how we get overhead into the cost of products. And absorption costing is what's required by generally accepted accounting principles. So it is all most companies do. And it leads to a lot of incorrect decisions. So we'll understand absorption costing and why it's required and how to do it, but then we'll talk about alternatives to that approach that can be much more helpful in terms of finding solutions to problems or predicting outcomes. And then we'll wrap up the course by talking about standard costing, which really has its basis in management by exception. That's an important concept. So those of you who have worked in different organizations know that there are a million things you could pay attention to every day, and you can't possibly pay attention to everything that's going on everywhere. So standard costing allows you it allows the problems to rise to the surface so you could focus on the problems, and it helps you kind of sort through all of the noise to find the things that most need your attention. So it's a very useful system. A lot of companies don't have standard costing systems, so understanding it is a way that you can make an organization better. So next I want to talk about the assignments in the class. So the first thing I want to talk about are most significant sentences. And this is something that was an assignment that I had in a number of MBA classes that I took, and I really, really liked it. And so first I'll describe what it is. So I assigned them for 2 chapter chunks. So every week we're basically going over 2 chapters. And so you'll read through those 2 chapters and then pick the one sentence out of the 2 chapters that is most meaningful to you or most significant to you. And that's, of course, not right or wrong. It's your opinion. So you'll type the sentence and then list the location of where you found it. And if it's on an ebook, you can just describe the paragraph or the chapter and the paragraph and so forth, or maybe the learning objective. And then a couple of sentences, like basically a paragraph about why you think that's the most significant sentence. So the reason I think this is valuable, there are 2 reasons. One, I know from experience that when I have to do an assignment like that, it causes me to read differently, almost on a subconscious level. The whole time I'm reading, I'm looking for that sentence. So I read in a different way that's a little bit deeper. The other thing that's beneficial is the reply portion. So your participation grade in the class is replying to at least 2 other students' posts each week. So you'll read through what other students say. You don't have to read all of them, but read a handful of other students' comments or their most significant sentences, and then post something positive and constructive. And it has to be more than just a cool post. You know, it has to be a couple of sentences long at least. So the benefit of that is not only do you read the material in a different way, but you're able to see the perspective that some of your other fellow classmates had on the material. And a lot of times that can be very enlightening. It can be, well, I didn't think about that. I saw that sentence, but it didn't strike me as being important, and I see now how it is. So I think that's a good thing to do. The one thing I would have to say about this is I grade it on did you do it or not. So it's not, partial points or something like that. The participation grade, I'm just going to add up. There are 6 of these, and there are 2 for each. So the points are how many did you do divided by 12. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. You get that percentage of the points. So this is important to do. It's also important to do on a timely basis. So make sure you pay attention to the calendar. They're due the same day every week, so you can get into a pattern. But just like with a classroom discussion, this is really meant to take the place of that in some ways. Saying something about somebody's post 3 weeks later is not very meaningful. So these do need to be done on time. And here's an example. And this PowerPoint is up on Moodle as well, so you could take a look at this later if you want to kind of pattern what you did. And you can see in this case, the student drew upon their personal experience and brought that to why they felt that was the most significant, and that's really the kind of the best way to do it. So homework assignments are going to cover 2 chapters. They're always due midnight on Sunday night. All of the due dates things are due by midnight that day. There are 2 exceptions to that, midterm and final weeks, where we don't have those assignments. So you'll complete those on the Connect software system, and they need to be done on time as well. And I give full credit for an honest attempt at the entire set of problems, so it's not graded in a traditional sense. There'll be 2 short papers that'll be done during this course, and a couple of weeks before they're due, I'll put up what the topic will be. It'll be something we've covered, and the topic will be in the form of a scenario. So I'll describe a scenario in a paragraph or 2 that describes an issue that a business is having, and you'll need to draft a memo to the CEO of the company recommending what should be done. And the important thing here is it's really about communication. So a lot of accounting classes don't tackle the subject of communication, and I think it's really important. It's not enough to have done the analysis and know the right course of action. You need to be able to let other people know what that is and do that in a clear and concise way. It can't be more than 2 pages double spaced. No CEO wants to read a book. It needs to be long enough that they understand what it is you're saying and it has credibility, but short enough that it's succinct and they can get through it and know clearly what it is you're saying. So it needs to be concise, well supported, and free of jargon. So don't include a bunch of acronyms or formulas or things that are going to be over somebody's head. We'll have 2 exams, a midterm exam that'll cover chapters 1 to 3 and 5 to 7, and then a final exam that will cover the latter half of the course, so it won't be comprehensive. Each are worth 100 points, and there'll be a combination of multiple choice terminology type questions and then questions where you have to solve problems. I'm going to do them on paper, so I will upload the exam the day it is due. First thing in the morning, and you'll have that day to complete it, and it'll be due by midnight that day. So make sure you kind of budget your time for that. My objective will be for the exam to take you about an hour. That'll be my objective. Of course, everybody works at different speeds, but that's my goal. And then when you're completed with it, I'll have you either scan it and upload it, or I'll have you take pictures with your cell phone and upload those pictures. I'll print them out, I'll grade them with red marks if you get something wrong. I will scan it and send it back to you so you see how you did. And I always make a point of grading things very quickly, so you'll get them the next day or the day after that at the latest. So, and we'll do a review session before each exam, which will be kind of a mock exam. It'll be in the same format, so the format won't throw you for a loop, and the same basic concept. So you'll have that preview. Okay, so here's an example of the course calendar. So that is kind of our Bible in terms of the schedule that we're following for the course. If something unusual happens and we need to change it, I'll issue a new calendar where I will send you a version 2, and I'll update things and then update them in Moodle as well. But if there's any question about when something is going to be or when it's due, this is what you should look at. So I'd recommend printing this out. It's 1 page and tack it up somewhere that you can see it and keep track of things. So here's an example of our Moodle page. So the top portion there is course resources, so syllabi, or the syllabus rather, calendar, this intro lecture. And I've got to ask questions here for them. So if you're working on something and you can't reach me for some reason, you can certainly ask all your classmates for help on something. And then you can see in the chapters there, I'll post the PowerPoint for the lecture. So after I record the video and I have a YouTube link, I'll put that right under the lecture, and it'll say video lecture chapter 1, and you can click on that to open the YouTube video. And then you can see down in chapter 2, there's most significant sentences. That's the forum where you'll Put in your most significant sentence. The line right after that, MSS Chapter 1 and 2, don't worry about that. That's just a placeholder I had to have so that I could enter a grade for your most significant sentence. So you don't need to click on that or do that third item down on Chapter 2. And then I've got the assignment, which is also a placeholder for the grade book because you'll do it in Connect. So some keys to being successful: complete all the homework. So I'm very strategic about what I assign for homework and the things that I want you to work through. So you'll benefit from doing it. You'll do better on the exams if you do the homework. 44% of the grade of this class is based on just doing something, so not graded on right or wrong. So just being diligent and following it, I don't think it's an overwhelming amount of work by any means, but just working through it all will help you get a good grade in this class if that's your goal. I would recommend that you read the material before listening to the lecture. I'd recommend printing out the PowerPoint. I like to print it out in the format of 3 slides per page so that you can take notes. So printing it out, first I'd read the chapter, print out the PowerPoint, 3 slides per page, and then I would take notes as I listen to the video, okay, listen to the lecture. I'd recommend using a binder, so 15 tabs in a binder would work well for this class to cover all the chapters and the final exam. And then the key thing here is ask for help, especially in an online class. I can't see the look on your face to know if you get something or not. So it's really, really important to me that if you don't get something, if something doesn't make sense, that please send me an email or give me a call. I welcome that communication from you. If I get calls from several of you about a topic, I'll stop and I'll post a quick video of going through a particular problem, or I'll explain something in more detail, because if 2 or 3 of you have a question about something, I'm going to assume the others of you do as well. So that's really important. So the last 2 things I want to talk about are kind of some big picture topics. What is accounting? And I'm sure many of you have definitions in your mind about what accounting is, and some of you have studied accounting and are pursuing a master's in accounting, so you certainly have opinions about what accounting is. So I'll tell you what my opinion is about it. So my opinion, or my outlook on what accounting is that it's about capturing all of the transactions that flow through a company. So even a small company could easily have thousands of transactions a day: purchasing inventory, paying employees, paying the rent, having customers give you cash for products, performing services for people. It could be many, many transactions a day. I think Apple sells 10 products worldwide every second. So some businesses have a huge velocity of transactions that are going through their company. So the first key is to capture all of that. If you don't capture it, you can't say anything about it. So it's capturing all those transactions and then arranging them in a way that tells a coherent, true story about what happened in that business. The purpose of telling that story about what happened in the business is so that good decisions can be made from that. Either good decisions about, should I invest in this company? Should I approve the loan to this company? Should we drop a product line? What should we do? All of those things flow from having that accurate, true story about what happened in a business in the past. So that's what accounting is to me. So why study accounting? Well, there's really kind of 2 paths here. One, you could decide to become an accountant in the future, and some of you are on that path, and as you mentioned in our meeting yesterday. So you could choose to be in public accounting. So you could sit for the CPA exam and be a certified public accountant. That would allow you to do tax work for people. It would allow you to do auditing, so going through another company's financial records and determining if they're accurate or not. And it could prepare you to do consulting for companies, helping them set up accounting systems and improve their practices. It could help you be a private accountant, so being a controller or a CFO in a company. The focus of this class is really on the role of a controller in a company. Or it could help you work in government or for not-for-profits. Accounting is as important in those entities as it is in a private business. So for those of you that aren't interested in being an accountant, which is fine, I'm not going to try to talk anybody into it, it can help all the rest of you be a more effective manager. I've worked in companies where there have been marketing managers that didn't understand accounting, and that meant they didn't understand the impact that the decisions they made had on the financial results of the company. And they generally did things that caused the company to be weaker rather than stronger. And that's true with marketing managers, HR managers, purchasing managers, production managers, sales managers, you name it. So understanding accounting is important from that perspective. It's also important as an effective manager to know what you can expect from your accountant. So believe it or not, some accountants can be lazy. A lot of accountants are trained to focus solely on historical reporting, and they need to be pushed to do things in a different way that can help you make forward-looking decisions. So it's important as a manager that you understand what accountants should be able to do for you so that you can demand that of them. It's important that you can speak their language, that when they start talking about, we'll talk in the next lecture about break-even points or target profit points or marginal revenue, marginal cost, those kinds of things, that you understand what that means so that you're not, have the deer in the headlights look when somebody mentions something, and that you understand the output of those people. So one example